welcome to Friday. Welcome to Friday, May 22nd, our Friday Live FileMaker and Clay Studio meetup group. Soon it won't just be Clay Studio, but that's just a hint for down the road. We have this event usually the last Friday of every month, but this week it's a week earlier because I'm gonna be out of town. Um, and we had some changes to our lineup today. So I hope if you did come for the auth deep dive, we decided to push that into a workshop. And won't be this workshop coming up this week, but the one after that. We'll do the next couple, and I'll host that, and we can actually build stuff right in there. If you have an immediate need for that, then send me a direct message, and we'll hook you up somehow. All right. That being said, please jump in, and we really do encourage questions and feedback, and let's make this more of a forum, hangout, talk, um, and versus just a presentation. Some events coming up this for the remainder of the year. Here we have Vienna calling for the people in Europe. I'll see you there next week. Um, that is, if you haven't been to the different FileMaker conferences, this one and the Um, it's not pause on air anymore. It's called full stack. No, admit one. Ticket. Something about ticket admit. Anyway, I forget the name. Todd Weller's conference that they have in it's a continuation sort of pause on air, and that's a really good one as well. They're sort of more technical. You know, the funny thing is, I was in a call sorry, not yesterday, about 3 days ago, with Brandon from Kalos Consulting. Kalos Consulting is they specialize in FileMaker developer positioning, but they do a lot of other industries as well. But they're really big in our industry, and they run a conference called Build, Grow, Learn. And he was saying that um, that these other conferences, the highly technical ones, people go after so much. And this business development one, people, it's like pulling teeth to get developers to come out. And I think it goes to show what motivates us. We love the technical challenges. We love the, not to use the word problem solving from Claris, but I think they hit the nail on the head in terms of marketing positioning that we love to problem solve, and we love to get right into the problem. I certainly do. And I think that's why we like these technical ones, like who can come up with something clever, who can something come up with something really cool. But if you do get a chance to go to the business side of these things, like they're really, really valuable. The people who do share stuff like that, and I never used to take interest in that at all. Like I didn't care. Um, but the people who go to those business side of ones and who present at those have excellent information. Like if you think, okay, this is pretty good tech stuff, the business stuff is almost guaranteed to be, I don't know, I'd say an order of no, maybe three times better in terms of value. Vienna calling is a little bit of a mix, but there's not too much usually. Sometimes some of the staff do some of the staff of the big dev houses will talk about project management and things like that. But it's a pretty technical oriented conference. June 4th and 5th is Elevate FM. That's going to be here in Toronto. We're based out of Toronto area, the GTA, and that is coming up. That is hosted by or primarily put on by FM Design University, which is Alexis Allen. That conference, a couple of us are speaking at that. Pearson and myself have a talk. I'm going to be talking about. It was originally going to be about API first design, but it's going to be more about designing in the age of AI and how we can structure things a little bit differently to not produce as much spaghetti and having better understanding of context and LLMs and things like that. So if you are in town for that, try to come out for that one. CQDF is a every other year conference, and this year we are a big sponsor of that, and we've done a lot of the software that does the registration and such, and that is put on by a few of the dev houses that are in the Montreal area. It's primarily in French, but there are a couple English speakers, I'm going to be doing just a quick 15-minute talk there on that as well. And that'll just be more on modern coding tools and what's available. And then finally, Engage You is another spread spectrum or broad spectrum conference, and that's coming up in Malmö, Sweden. We were there last year. I'm not sure if we're going this year or not. We haven't really pulled the trigger on that yet, and where we stand on that. But if we do and we are there, we'll hope to see you there as well. Does anybody just quick maybe a quick show of hands? Does anybody go to any of these events on a regular basis, and why? Right. Not so many hands, huh? Okay. All right, let's leave it at that. Let's just jump on. Oops, that's a leftover slide from last week. Hassan, I had this slide in here. I wasn't sure if you had updates or not.
Yeah, most of the updates right now is basically stability issues. We know some issues recently with deployments as well as rollbacks. Those should be taken care of. There's also just been consistency issues along the board, and there's a bunch of new templates as well as new AI features. We'll be going over some of those today.
All right, super. I'm going to flip things over to Linsha, and she's going to show us what's new and what she's been working on.
Thank you. Share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to show some new templates today. So first one is the we update some of our auth page page templates. You will notice there is a new button called Send Me a Magic Link. It's the same button with the Klai Studio where you can log in without using your password, but using the new magic link sent to your email box. It's running this new auth magic request action, and it will this page will also handle the related error message like login and also for the like magic link sending field. Okay, that's the first new template, and the second one is a little bit complicated. It's our new customized error page. You can use this page yourself or tell just add this page to your app and tell our AI assistant to review this page and help you to customize to your own styling. So this page reads like error codes or description or message or other like we have new aus error type. So it will see the like description message or code and get the AI assistant, or you can do it yourself to add this code, this code block to your on upload to replace the our old error page. And please use exactly the same slot for this page. And those are some buttons with the placeholder actions you can use to like go home or try again. Next one, actually next two pages you can use to if you have not already upgrade your web apps to a PWA1. You probably want to use this one. This one is a PW upgrade guide. So it's like step by step how you want to change your current app to a PWA app. So the first step is to set up this setup code in your own upload one. And there are some customizing stuff you want to use. And you can do the following steps until you finish this one. And you can run an install prompt or ask push notification permissions. So those buttons are using our, sorry, show you here. Using our built-in functions. So like we have a check PW installation or prompt install. And here are PW prompts, push notification. And same idea, you can add this page to your app and tell our AI assistant to help you to upgrade your current web app to a PWA app.
Oh,
And the
cool.
next is a very simple page. So if you just add this, upgrade your app to a PW app, you want maybe to your customers or to your clients to show the instruction how to add this PW app to their desktop or mobile phones. So it's in the full instruction you can easily add to your app without any changes. Probably you only want to change the colors or add maybe a logo or screenshot of your own apps. Okay. The last one is a payment model. So I noticed some of our clients asking like if they want to only for the SIN number, they only want the four inputs, or the credit card number, they want some uh,
Mm.
space between the numbers, the digits. So this page mostly using our Cliff.js. So you can set up with the input format for a mobile, for a phone or for a credit card. I can customize where you want to have the space, or like most, sorry, uh, the digit length. And this one is the using our Google address elements. I haven't set up for this app, but you can add your own API keys to your DOM header insertion, and this will prompt the Google address autofill. And that's all for the new templates. And I do have a quick survey only last like 5 minutes. So I'm going to send this one survey to you, and I would like to see how you would like to use our learning resources or build resources, and what kind of templates or for app or for page or for our component you would like to see, and we can um, pick pick your ideas and to build for you.
If you fill out the survey, we'll put an extra name in the swag draw as well. Linsha, would you mind sharing your screen again? Can I see some of
Okay,
this first couple? They look kind of neat. There's some stuff interesting I want to know how you built because I haven't seen these before.
okay.
Can you go back to like maybe the first couple of the templates there? And it wasn't that one. Maybe that. What's
This
this? Yeah, what's this one here? All right. Um, so this error page you can add to your app. So there's a default error page that's in people's apps, but this one here can override, right? I think we've talked about that in the past a few times, right? But this is kind of cool that you have a template. We've never had a template for this, so you have to kind of just make your own. Um, almost all of the errors, actually all of the errors in Clay can be trapped, and that means there's an error trapping mechanism, and those errors can propagate all the way back from your FileMaker system forward, and you can route the results of that particular error into an action. So basically, let's say a record is locked in FileMaker. You can throw an error from your script that's hooking into the system, and have that render or do a certain action on the front end. So you don't have to build all of that out. That infrastructure is there. It's fairly complex. So that's actually really kind of cool. Can you go to the next one though? I think it was one of the ones I saw that would look really interesting. That how you built. Yeah, I think it's that one there. Can you scroll up a bit? Yeah, how did you make this manifest setup thing, this copy code? I guess you just got AI to build it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, right? Well, I mean, that's the nature of things, right? But it's just kind of interesting. I don't know how you guys feel. Like we were talking before we started recording today. Alessandro and I were talking. I was more ranting. Sorry, Alessandro. Um, that I've never worked harder in my life, I would say, than now. Um, and I think one of the things that we really have to think about is anything that is easily reproducible. We used to make a living, like everybody in this community makes a living by offering a service of doing something that somebody else can't do. right? I think that's safe to say for everybody here. That's how we make a living. That's changing, right? Because the things that they can't do are a lot easier for them to do. So it's like, what is it that we're offering? And I think that's a whole separate talk, right? But anyhow, so that yeah, I wanted to know how you what that was. That looked kind of cool there.
This one.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that page there, and the next page one, just one last one there.
um,
Not the preview one. That one's not so. That one. The preview one was boring. So these actions here are all wired up in the page right now, or are they just placeholders?
oh, this were up to page, but I haven't changed this app to PWA one, so you
Right.
probably won't
Okay.
see much changes. Yeah, this one. Yep, it's just the code here.
Right. A code block. Gotcha.
Hmm.
Cool. There's some really neat text formatting and styling things that you can do, and I think it's still really important to know the capabilities of a technology, even though AI is there. Um, my experience has been so far over the past, I don't know, 3 years, I guess we've been sort of all in on various aspects of AI. And even, after 3 years now, we're still the capability just significantly increased in the past 4 months. But AI still all the LLMs still just are very hyper eager to just solve your problem and not necessarily solve it in the best way. And even scaffolding around that, the harness that goes around the AI that runs it doesn't solve that problem. It can kind of guide the AI in that. So I think we still, as developers, we still need to really be thinking about that stuff. All right, cool. Thank you. Bruno is unavailable this morning. He had a last minute conflict, so I'm going to try to step in for him and cover his spot. So I'll see how I do here. We recently, one of his tasks was he just built some helper file analytics, and I just want to show you what those are. So give me a sec to pull that up and why we would want to use that. This is something that we really want to hear back from our community on, and I think this is something we can hack up later on. So let me just do this quick. All right. So our helper file, one of the unique things with Clay Studio is that the concept of a helper file gives us a lot of transparency into what's happening in the system. As you know, it's a log that sits in between the front end and the back end of your application, and almost all the time in terms of support, probably a good 50% of the times in support, we're asking, hey, are there long hook times? Are there errors here? Right? Because it has such insight value. So we just added this quick project, and it's a hybrid app. Helper File's been a hybrid app since for the last 8 years. It's not a new thing. I noticed a lot of the community talk is about building WebViewer web apps inside FileMaker, but we've been doing that literally for almost a decade now, right? Just to put things into perspective, it's not a new concept, although our community maybe catches on a little slow. All right. And the idea here is we're introducing some analytics, and I want to talk about a little bit about more the concept of how it works rather than what's in it. And but let me just demonstrate really quick. It's pretty straightforward. This is just a version 1 or a version 0 proof of concept. The home page in the helper file is already a web app, so there's nothing to update here except we did have to add one script into your system. So that would be a cut and paste script that we can pop in. So you don't have to download a new helper file or anything like that to update to support this, which is the cool thing. We just started with some arbitrary metrics, like off the top of our head. I'm not going to say that there was a deep dive into here to say, hey, these are the most ideal things that we want to see. This is more just let's get something set up, and then let's get the feedback from our experienced FileMaker community on what to put in here. So there's a number of things. This helper file has 800 800 inbox records. The longest hook is 8 seconds. Okay, that might be a flag for something. Average call time is zero point 0.8 seconds roughly. Um, there are calls that are above 500 milliseconds in a system, which is what we could consider a slow call. Is 316 and so on. This is actually bytes. I think he's actually updated this since here. There's some more new metrics in here. And so the idea here is that we can go right at a glance and be able to help diagnose. You can go in and help diagnose your system. It also shows what services. Services are the different branches that the hook takes. Is it running a script? Is it running an on-form request? Is it running a login? Which ones of those are taking the longest time? You can see this on login happens to be taking the longest time in this test file. And the shortest ones are the API calls and what else here? Registration and some other things in here. So that breaks down. This is based on all of the records that are on the inbox. I'll talk about what we've done or what he's done, I should say, to build that. Here's a histogram of the call times. I think this is somewhat valuable. You can sort of say, hey, I got a handful of these calls that are outliers. So that can kind of give us some insights there. And if you have ideas, I think what we're going to do is I can see this changing quite a bit, and it's pretty easy for us to change the metrics. I don't see any great value of adding some kind of user interface design where the user can change the. That's a lot of extra work for a small gain. But if it's something that you want to do, absolutely you can. A few other things here, top users, so we can find out which users are using the system the most. In this particular case, it's Hassan. He's probably doing tests because this is a test environment for us. Alexander is one of our team as well. So some people, you can see the people here are in there. Um, this is by the number of calls. This is by the size of the payload. So it's a little bit different slice. So you can get an idea. It's like, oh, that one user happens to be sending megabytes into our system all the time, right? And that could be a potential red flag. There isn't any logging currently here of the top, let's say, the helper file auto prunes. So I think everybody knows that already, but you can set a count here, and I can say, I'll keep the last 2,000 records, and then when it gets over 2,000, it prunes down to 10% less than that value, and it keeps buffering between those two. Oops. And I thought this changed a bit because this seemed to be there. Yeah, I thought there's some optimizations probably we can be happening in here. This might not have that in there right now. I'm not sure. And also by hook set type. So I'd like to know your thoughts on that. If you think there's some other valuable metrics that you could see in there, um, please do chime in and let us know.
I dropped a few in the comments.
All right, let me pull those up. Thank you. Stuff using more than one app or helper file, perhaps breakdown of these metrics by app. Oh, this is an interesting idea. So if we're using the helper file for more than one application, this is something that we don't talk about too much, but the helper file is actually pretty flexible. You can have multiple apps and you can have authentication groups and stuff. We only have a handful of people who are using authentication groups, so it's not something that we promote too much. And Sankey chart. That's the one with the lines. That might be a good visualization as well. And absolutely, we could throw that stuff in there pretty easily now. So here's an interesting thing about thinking about how, in terms of design and what Bruno's done here, is when you're building something, rather than hard code a whole bunch of metrics, why don't we put one way of reaching into FileMaker and bring all of the system code, if we will. Here, let me just do this here for a second. So rather than if I have my application here, and then I have FileMaker sitting here, here's the database. Rather than saying, hey, I need to fetch metric 1, metric 2, metric 3, metric 4, and having various types of calls or anything, and this between any two systems, right? Then I have the business logic sitting in here that does all the filtering and finding, and I also have another set of business logic here that is a post or pre-processing. So rather than take that approach, why not do something simpler? And this is hence where all APIs sit in. Why not make one simple call? And in that call, I can pass some arguments in and say, hey, this is what I want you to find for me. And then that deburdens FileMaker for it. Just you have to do that fine, but it doesn't have to do the aggregate data, and that's the expensive stuff, figuring out all of the times and so on. And then it can pass that data back into the main system. And this goes with any two systems, right? This is not a FileMaker web viewer thing. This is any two concepts. So the idea here again is being able to create some kind of structured query, if you will, send that over to FileMaker to process, take the data back. Since it's a query, you can send like a SQL query, for example. You could send just give me all of the inbox records. That would be pretty expensive. Just give me the count of the inbox. That's a lot cheaper. Just give me an aggregate sum of the average of some number, and that can all be done in SQL. So we can handle it that way. So that's sort of the concept. And the other thing here as well is if your foreign system can support concurrency well, FileMaker kind of does. You can send multiple calls in parallel here too. So I can send 3 or 4 different calls at once, have FileMaker fetch that data. It's going to cache the same data in memory, so it's not as expensive, and then send that data back in multiple calls. So that is what he's done here, and I'll just show you kind of how that works if you ever wanted to build. And this goes for building any kind of web application, right? That sits inside FileMaker. So let's see here. All right, so there's 2 scripts here. One of them is called execute query, and basically it takes a query, and that query can be an array of SQL queries, related things, and it executes on the remote system or in your helper file. I'm not going to go through the code because nobody cares. And now that foreign system, which is the web viewer, can fetch all of that. So that's that one. And he's got another one here. It's execute metrics query. And I think this one here, perform script on server. So my mistake, this is execute query. So this one here, okay. There's one other thing that it's doing here as well. Is this, of course, this helper file is hosted on your server, but it's running locally. So if I was to just do a query on certain things, FileMaker is going to fetch all of those records, and it becomes pretty inefficient. So it performs script on server here to fetch that data. And I thought he just sent me, sorry, I wish Bruno was here, but I thought he had mentioned as well, he made another change here in which he can pass data to the data API. So let me just see that. Let's see if I can see if it is in here. I thought there was something about data API. Yeah, data API. He just added this in here. So now what's really interesting is this is a single script integration, really easy to integrate, really easy for AI to parse, because in the past we wanted to break stuff down for humans into multiple scripts. Now one big script, the monolithic mega script, is actually not such a bad thing, which is a totally different paradigm than old style coding, right? So what's the bonus of having execute data API on and being able to pass data into there? That means now that the foreign tool, the web viewer, can write records, read records, right? And anything the data API can do, right? Which is pretty good, pretty flexible now. And by doing that, I can control this software way easier than I can control the schema and the software that's running in FileMaker, especially if it's on multiple remote machines like the helper file is, right? There's maybe 1,000 copies of this thing sitting out somewhere in various places. So now we can, as a community, we can make a change to here, and it changes it for everybody without having to modify that foreign code. So that's kind of the gist there in terms of architecture. Did I articulate that very well, or not so much? All right. Any questions at all or suggestions what we could do? We were looking to see, well, what could we do with the user table? Is there any information? Like there's a little bit of user stuff in here, but is there something that we could do with that table that would be of interest?
There was a question from Steven about um tracking more than one app on the helper file.
Right. Oh, sorry. I started to answer that. Are you sharing in those two apps? Are you sharing authentication? Because you could definitely scope the by common hook set name. You could scope the information and say which apps are using data. Um,
Yeah, either by that and or by the subdomain or URL.
right. Yeah. The subdomain, let's see. So we have that access, we have that data that's in the data field. I'm just wondering if you could efficiently grab that. The common hook set name. Yeah. You you have to post process it because that data doesn't sit in an individual field. It's sitting it's sitting in this field here, right? And because of that, you would have to fetch that entire field to get the data out, I think. Right? Unless is there a clever way that you could grab the data? No, I don't think so. It's not like we can run a function against it on the server. So that might not be too efficient to grab, is what I'm getting at, because you'd have to grab all of this, and this could be massive. Alessandro, I like the metrics. Can you add the function to compare the multiple servers, dev, staging, and pro? Um, Typically, they're different helpers and they're different physical machines. So you'd have to have some mechanism to gather them up from all of those machines. I don't think you would need to compare dev to production unless you're trying to say, hey, this fails in production, but it doesn't fail in dev. Those kinds of mistakes or errors, or vice versa, which are common. But my experience is the things that fail on dev versus production are related more to data environmental provisioning, like preferences data or non-migrated code, or the final one is environmental differences. This API is whitelisted and it's not in my dev production. They all pretty much fall into those categories. So I don't think it's going to be so much the metrics in the inbox, and also the dev metrics that you have. I'm not sure why this is so slow. This was fast. You might have changed something again because it was quick before. Um, the dev metrics are usually crap data, so I wouldn't want to compare it to too much. Like this on login means nothing here. In production, it would mean something. And it should actually be longer if it is working because it's going to send an email. That's probably why. Um, but yeah. Okay, super. I think this week we're just going to give this a quick facelift and retheme it to because it's still branded as Better Forms, and we'll make that available as a download. Again, we'll update that. The helper file has only gone through like 3 changes in 8 years because it doesn't need to for the most part. But if you want to install this without having to migrate the file, you can use like a migrator as well. But if you don't want to bother to get the latest one or you get the second last one, it's really just going to be 2 scripts that you copy in. There's nothing else. Just paste those in and you're good to go. So we'll have some instructions coming out in maybe about a week or so for that. All right. Thanks, Bruno. I notice Bruno talks a lot more than I do. All right. I'm gonna flip things over to Pearson, who's gonna talk about did I say about funny? I think there's mostly Canadians in this call, right? Um, he's gonna talk about UX and AI.
Yes, I will. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, hey everybody. Thanks for joining and welcome to this month's edition of UX Corner. And like Charles said, I'm going to be talking about AI and specifically how I have started to use AI more in my own workflows and just kind of describing my techniques and the things that I've discovered from using it. And for anybody coming to Elevate FM in a couple weeks, this is a bit of a short preview, first edition of what I'll be talking about at that conference. So I'm pretty excited. Um, yeah, so I want to talk about AI, how I'm using it, starting from the conceptualization of your idea, whether that is a full app, could be a feature, could be a page, conceptualizing anything, and moving on to the consultation, where I've been using AI as my consultant and not as a replacement for me as the designer. And maybe I'm a little biased because I'm trying to save my own my own career here, but because AI is just it's I don't need to say it. It's a crazy thing. Everybody, we all acknowledge it. Um, but yeah, I really want to use this as my consultant and not the replacement because or which for reasons I'll get into. And finally, the creation, combining everything together, your ideas and the advice that you've been given by your AI consultant. And I want to start off with a bit of a short little story, kind of how I first started thinking about this concept, I'll say. The concept being using AI in my workflows. And how do we start from an idea and how do we flesh it out? How do we turn those pieces of advice from AI into something real? And so recently, in the last few weeks, I've started a personal challenge for myself just because, I sit down all day. I haven't been going out much. Spring is here and the sun and the weather is nice. So I wanted to get out more. So my personal goal has been to walk 10,000 steps a day. And it's been really great. I've been getting fresh air, touching grass. I'm actually kind of interacting with my community a lot more. And as I was walking, I passed by this in my neighborhood, passed by this tennis court that was installed or that was built, and it was like this big tennis court, probably like 9 courts in this local area, and it was completely empty. And I'm not sure if that was because it's new and it hasn't been opened yet, or if it's too early in the year, no one's using it. But there was 9 courts and no one was using it, and all I could think to myself was, man, I really wish I had a tennis partner because I started playing tennis last year with my family. I don't have people in my neighborhood who play tennis. Like my friends in the neighborhood, they're not tennis players, and I don't really want to have to teach them and everything. So I'm thinking of all these ideas. I'm walking by the tennis court. I'm thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have a tennis partner? I don't even have to be their friend. I just want to be able to pick up a tennis racket and go. So all of this, as I'm walking, came up with just an app concept, an idea where I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if there was an app where it would help me find these local people, local neighbors or community members who just want to play tennis with me. And I don't have to be their friend. This isn't a dating app. This isn't a friend finder. This is just, I want to play a game and I can't play it unless I have a partner. So that's my idea. And as I'm on my walk, I pulled up Claude because I found that Claude, while Claude design is pretty cool and powerful, um, it's not realistic for me to use Claude design for these small scale kind of ideas. It costs tokens and everything, but Claude as the large language model and as a consultant, I found is pretty powerful. I like it more than ChatGPT or Gemini for this purpose. So I was talking to Claude just with my voice, talking to it, just not not getting like a full conversation back and forth, but just kind of spewing an idea and asking it questions and asking it to ask me questions. So this is all part of the conceptualization process, and I'll show a couple of the prompts and messages that I sent to Claude. So first, initially, I just give it a massive word vomit of my idea, saying I want something to help me find community or find tennis partners. Right. And so after I gave it my idea, I said, and sorry, I think I might have missed a slide. I forgot to add it in, but after I gave it my whole spiel, the last thing I said is help me flesh this out. Ask me questions to help me fill in the gaps that I might be overlooking or features that I might be missing. So I gave it the whole idea, and the first question it asks me is, does the original poster get to approve or decline the person before it's confirmed, or is it automatic first come first serve? And this is in reference to this application when someone makes a post to say, "Hey, I want to play tennis with somebody." So it asked me this question, and it gives me the opportunity to kind of think of these more specific use cases and the specific workflows that I'll be working with, or um, turning my concept into something that's feasible. So I answered it, and I've shortened these questions and answers. My answers as I'm walking, I'm repeating myself, I'm saying a bunch of garbage, I'm retracting statements that I said in my message. But this is just the summary of what I said. I wanted the app to prioritize matching people based on their shared activities rather than personal profiles to avoid becoming a friendship or dating platform while still allowing users to approve participants for safety and using excess interest in an activity to help connect other compatible users. So to answer his question, I'm just saying that yeah, the poster should approve or decline, but I really wanted to hammer home that this is, I guess, just explaining this is the purpose. This is not for friendship or dating. This is what I want it for. And my longer explanation was a lot more specific, but this is just one question that I was asked that I thought was an important question to flesh out. The next one was how hyperlocal do you want this to be? This being the area in which the people around me will see my posts or I'll see their posts. I said this should be nearby activity focused connections with a small radius, but maybe customizable in case, you might be biking around. Maybe you're planning in the future, you're saying, I know that I'll be downtown on the weekend and I'll have some time to spare. I want to find somebody to do this activity with while I'm downtown on the weekend. And yeah, so I was able to give it a couple more answers. It asked me a few more questions. I'm only showing three here that I thought were valuable. Um, this one I thought was interesting. After it asked me a lot of other questions like who are the users and what kind of activities do you see this being used for, and a lot of other concept questions. The last thing it asked me was, is there anything about this idea that worries you? Meaning, and it
Mm.
explained a little more, saying, what fears do you have about this idea before you've even created anything? What are your predisposed worries? What I'm saying, just for an MVP, just the idea of people using it, how do I make sure that people are interested in the same activities and times, create opportunities for mutual matches? These are the things that worries me. And given all of that information, this was a back and forth conversation that took place over maybe about 45 minutes to an hour as I'm just walking outside. I'm not even at my desk. I'm just I'm just putting everything in my head into words and giving it to Claude. It was able to give me this fully developed product concept document. After I gave it all my information, it was able to compile everything that I said using the context of its questions and my answers to create this document. So, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because this is pretty extensive, but you can see here that it's written out very clearly, um, a very clear definition of what I wanted. And this goes beyond what I thought of in my first message to Claude when I said, "Hey, I have this idea." This has expanded that idea to encapsulate everything else that I wanted that I hadn't even thought of yet. And this isn't feature creep and uh, maybe it can do this and maybe I can connect it with this and thinking way ahead of myself. This would be a really good MVP if this is what I could produce. And so just a few more uh, sections here, and it gave me a nice MVP scope summary at the end. And so using this method of consulting with AI to help me flesh out my idea. And for me, it was a full app idea, but this can be used for a workflow or a specific feature. It doesn't have to be this extensive. Um, I thought this was a really great way to help me fully grasp what I was even thinking, if that makes sense. Because you can come up with an idea, maybe you come up with a feature, and you're overlooking some element of that. If I have if I want to make uh, a collaborative software where multiple people are working on the same thing, this maybe I'll use this as an example. This is something that we've kind of talked about in the past with making Klai collaborative. Is if multiple people are working on the same page, who gets the permission to make the save? Who has kind of that high high level power to make these changes or to make the save? And those are just kind of that's just an example of um, maybe a barrier or something to think about when we first came up with the idea of I want this to be collaborative. And maybe that idea, a collaborative workspace, is a great idea, but what am I not considering that might make this idea harder to do or harder to implement? And how can I work around that? If this is an obstacle, how do I get around it? Because I first have to see the obstacle in order to solve or to find a solution. So this was just a really great first step in conceptualizing this idea. Now, for the next chapter, we have the consultation. So, I guess you could say there was a lot of consultation in the previous step, but I called that the conceptualization because that's just me putting, getting an idea from my head, putting it on paper or putting it on my screen, putting it into words. Now is the consultation. I have more specific questions now that I have an idea, a fully formed idea. Now I just want some design consultation. So I asked a question. Sorry, I'm thinking, should I show? Uh, s- uh, Sorry, I'll show what consultation questions I asked, and I'll show after what it came up with and what it created before I asked these questions. So if I have this concept, a local activity app, I want it to have kind of an editorial community bulletin board style. That's what I envisioned. Kind of replicating what you see in real life. I imagined the community center has like a cork board with a bunch of pins in it saying, "Come to this bingo night. Come to this free tennis lesson, public in this public space." That's what I wanted to replicate. So, what kind of colors would you recommend that I use for this kind of theme? So it's suggested here's an off-white for backgrounds, an olive green for primary actions, a charcoal for typography, this soft beige for secondary surfaces, and a muted terracotta for the occasional accent. And yeah, I thought looking at this color palette, I thought that looked pretty cool. It's very calm, very chill, and that's the exact vibe that I wanted when I was describing this. I didn't want it to feel like a really hyper action oriented, sports focused application that might deter people that this is for. This is for people who don't have that maybe outgoing personality where they can just go to a tennis court and say, "Hey, stranger, do you want to play with me?" This is kind of a little more introverted, a little more cozy. This is more inviting, very neighborly, very community focused. So I thought this was a really good palette to come up with. The next question I asked was, what about the typography? What would my typeface even look like for this? And it gave me some suggestions. It said, how about these are some styles for your headings, and here are some styles for your body. And as an example, I just put this together. I chose source serif and enter, and here's just an example of what um, that pairing of typefaces could look like. So this isn't even a UI element. This is just a pretend um, kind of a heading, a little description, and some details. And this is all just source serif, enter, and smaller italicized enter below. Next, I think next is me putting it all together. But I think first I do want to show, because I thought it was funny, without any of this consultation, um, what Figma Make produced for me based on just that document that was produced earlier. So I used Figma Make and I gave it the document, that fully formed product document, and I said, make an app. And I thought that, I thought that the document itself was so full of information that this was gonna nail it on the first try. But I saw this and I thought, wow, this is ugly. This kind of sucks. Like it does what I want, but it doesn't look good at all. Looks very generic. It looks, I can't even say it looks like AI slop because it's so void of any personality or styling. So that's why I went back and I asked these questions. And what it produced, I didn't use Figma Make because something that I'm kind of running into is just uh, what would you call it? The economy of tokens or my lack of tokens. I don't want to waste these on the concepts. I want to be more sure of myself before I start using them. So I went to um, Google AI Studio, which I think because I have a Google, um, I got the our Delph's engineering email. It's a business email. I think that gave me uh, some, I guess, from free tokens or the ability to create some concepts for free. So here's what it came up with based on these style choices, and this leads me into the creation. And it created this app called Nearbound. I didn't come up with the name. Really, it just gave it the concept, and this is what it produced. So from the start, I had to make a couple of tweaks just to say I don't want to actually have to log in for real. I just want to put my name in and get going and see what this could look like. So this was the homepage. You enter your name and you're brought to this activity board. It looks pretty cool. Like it's got personality. It has interactions that I can show in a second. Um, but this is just a really high level starting point for me because there's some changes that I would make. It's not perfect, and I'll show you some of the flaws that is kind of inevitable with AI. But as a concept, as a starting point, this was so detailed and gave me so much to work with. So this is just the activity board. This is the feed. You can see what other people have posted. And if you want to make your own post, here's some of the properties that I had described in my back and forth with it about what information to include in the post. And then you have a profile. But there's some problems. I don't like the way they used red in some areas because that looks like an error. There's a lot of some pretty bad responsive issues that I can show. Um, and actually, yeah, I'll show that right now. Because what else is really helpful with using AI to give you this starting point is the the interactions that you can uh that gives you. So for example, this is stuff that you might not think of if you're not the designer or this isn't top of mind. But here we have just on the first page we have an input box, and this is in its inactive state. So it's got a background. You click on it, now it lights up, and it's got a darker border. So that's like we've seen already two states of this input button that I don't have to think about anymore as a designer. I say, oh, so I already know what the default state could look like, what the active state could look like. I have a button here. Hover state gets a little darker. You can see. So I'm just gonna enter my name, enter, and yeah, a couple animations as it pops up. They're a little janky, so I can make tweaks, but at least now I have an idea. And now we have a couple hover states for the post itself. Got some hover states and active states for these filters. That's another thing. Is just this is a way that I could filter if I wanted to. Here's what an empty state would look like. That's another part of the UI or UX experience that I don't have to think about. Normally, I would go to Dribble or I would go to Google Images and search empty state examples, and it would give me a bunch of examples from software that doesn't exactly match the style that I want, so that I have to continue looking and continue looking. I want to find an empty state that looks fun and inviting and bulletin board style. That's a very specific. It's still kind of generic, but I'm looking for very specific sources of inspiration, and using an initial first draft of an AI generated interface is a really specific, focused source of inspiration for design. And so I'll show a bit of why I don't use this as my final concept or my final design source. If I go to mobile, this is brutal. Like this is if you go back to all your activities, things are squished and they're not well aligned. They have a bunch of problems that I would want to fix that I don't have the time or the tokens to fix with just AI Studio, for example. Um, and I'll go back to current size. There's some other issues that I could use um, you know, AI Studio to fix, but I would rather just do it myself. So for example, we have this click count me in to show that I'm interested. And I can click that. It's cool. It gave me like a little loading state as well. And here's the state when I click it. But I can't unclick it. I can't revoke my interest in this activity. So that's a pretty big flaw in the user experience that the AI wasn't able to um, solve or consider on the first draft. But that's okay because I can start from here and I can do this myself. I can uh, if I was coding this or creating this in Klai, I could just ask the Klai AI to have an undo or click the button again to revoke my interest. Same thing with the responsiveness. I could ask the Klai AI to make some changes, or I could just make the changes myself in Figma because with Figma I have more control, I have more autonomy over the specific changes that I want to make. Um, Same thing with, the colors, for example, or anything else that I want to make small changes to. I don't want to spend the tokens and the time to do it all here. I'm just going to do it in Figma where my kind of workflow ends in my job. Or if I was a developer making it in Klai, I can make those changes in Klai. While starting from here, I have the concept. I can say, "Hey, Klai, take this screenshot, make this," and make a couple changes after. Uh,
Pearson, Roger just had a quick question, I think.
oh, sure, yeah. Go ahead, Roger.
Sorry, it wasn't an important question. It was more along the lines of taking this a step further. So I know when you had on the previous cards, when you had three people interested, if you can go back to that card, it shows, for example, Withrow Parks Courts at a certain date and time. I'm assuming that these parks, for example, would not be just show up on a first come, first serve. So you'd have to have some sort of integration into, registration for the parks and stuff like that. And so things like that you would potentially want to consider later on, I'm imagining.
Yeah, and so when I was coming up with this on my walk, I was thinking of it more like as a kind of a mental exercise or just a creative exercise. But if I was to make this for real, those are some important factors to consider that, even Claude uh mentioned to me just about with if these are public spaces, how do you know that a space is going to be available even? And I said just for this concept, I don't want to I don't want to think about that. Uh, but if this was something that I wanted to pursue as a real app, then for sure that would be something to consider. Maybe working with those facilities to have some kind of registration system. Um, but for this concept, I was thinking that this was just uh, fully community based with no interaction or integration with the municipality itself.
Yeah.
So you just hope that sometime between 12 and 4 p.m. on May 21st, there's going to be a court available. But
Yeah, just a
that delay.
concept. Okay, got
Yeah.
it. Thanks.
But it did ask me about that when I was coming up with this. Charles, I see your hands up. I'm not sure if you had a
Yeah, I
question.
was going
Yeah.
to ask you, going back to the conceptual part, the very first segment there. How would you feel how would that be different than, or better or worse than, you say Jordan and Anna meeting together and discussing a feature? Because sometimes those were like really micro interaction kind of, oh, should we do this? Should we word it like this or word it that way? Like, I almost feel like that was too much on the other end. Or is that wrong?
Well, so are you saying too much on the other end, as in?
Like, so just to explain for everybody else, on another project that Pearson worked on, he would meet with another designer and the company lead, and work on some aspect. Let's say it's that slider at the top that selects the sport, and you guys would, you know, pretty much spend an hour or 2 hours just talking about that, and then somebody would go off and design it that week, and then come back in another half an hour or an hour. That almost seems to me, I don't know if I'm wrong here, but it seems a little bit too non-AI. Like, is there some happy medium in the middle, or
Yeah,
medium?
I think with that example, when we were working on that product, yeah, we did get very granular with some of the features that we wanted to implement, and I think that we were, um, because we were doing this all on our own, and me and the designer, we were creating a bunch of different features for a bunch of different pages and workflows that I think that they did sometimes. It was hard to try to integrate them together. And if we're if I have this interaction on this page in this workflow, and I have a somewhat similar interaction with a somewhat similar interface, or sorry, not a similar interface. I have one feature concept here, another feature or concept here, and I want them to feel uh, stylistically the same. I want them to feel integrated. We had trouble with that because um, there was, I guess you could say that there's just a lot to keep track of.
Yeah.
And at that point, I don't think that we had a really great system for keeping track. But with the way I would do this now is with I would create maybe like a project in ChatGPT, or make a project in Claude, so that I can have kind of a, a one bucket that I could ask all my questions in, and have the AI like understand the full scope of what I'm working on. And with that, I think it would be able to help me create these features and add-ons within the same style family, you could say. It would know that I made this concept 2 weeks ago, and I used it on this page. And now 2 weeks later, I have a new concept,
Yeah.
and it'll hopefully remember, hey, you did something similar 2 weeks ago. Uh, Here's how you can make this new concept, using some of those same components or same elements, so that it feels like it's all part of the same system. I guess that's kind of just that's a long way of saying, um, developing a design system with the help of some AI consulting would be really helpful.
So one of the common pushbacks from many of the AI, like with the Figma and with Claude Design, is that internally they've almost hard coded a set of rules. This stuff looks good with this, use this with that, and they've kind of limited that space down. I think I sent you a podcast. They talk about that as well, but I've heard that from numerous sources on pushback. And Figma especially seems to be based on components. They have a set of components, and it just assembles the components for the most part together. It doesn't seem to be create that much unique stuff in there. Like it's not totally free form, total concept. So I thought that was kind of a limitation of the design tools in that they're using these preset patterns and preset components. Mind you, mostly FileMaker developers. Then there's almost anything is going to be almost always better than what we're building.
Mm.
So
Are you saying like that kind of falls into the trap of creating that AI slop? It all looks the same,
yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that the like for example the purple, right? The AI
Hmm.
purple,
Yeah.
that type of thing, and like every element has rounded corners. I mean, that's the style right now anyway. Even these boxes have rounded
Yeah.
corners. But at some point, I wouldn't be surprised in 3 or 4 years, everything's square. We seem to
Yeah.
bounce around and, drop shadows and maybe we won't get that relief and those things. So it is somewhat of a stylistic thing that the AI generates naturally. But the AI design tools themselves, the actual like the Figma design, Claude design, I should say, Figma or whatever it is.
Mhm.
UX Pilot, I think is another one. All of those ones there. I think a lot of them have, I don't want to say preset notions, but they have certain things and then they riff off of that, which I
Yeah.
guess a person does that too, right? You're going to kind of say, I'm going to
Yeah. I
start
mean,
with this.
there's an old I guess kind of
Adage.
yeah, adage that my teacher used to tell me. It was that everything is a remix. There's no such thing as an original idea because your idea came from the inspiration of seeing these other ideas that already existed. And I think that's kind of the pitfall of these AI designs is that they're just taking what already exists. So if when I'm going on Dribble or Google images and I see all these other AI SaaS software interfaces and yeah, I pick up on the commonalities. I'll say, wow, everybody's using rounded corners, and that's become kind of the norm. So I guess I'm going to use some rounded corners. And that's what AI is doing. It's just on a much larger scale and a lot faster. And that's why you get something that looks like this. This was me giving no stylistic input, and so it said, okay, I'm gonna make the most generic, most widely or universally digestible interface. It's got no personality. It's just some like tailwind colors and whatever. It's just gonna look super basic. And for some softwares, this might be fine. Like this is not some software isn't supposed to look flashy or fun. It's just supposed to serve a purpose. The problem is when you do have concepts or ideas that are supposed to invoke an emotion, the AI might have trouble doing that. So that's why I think it was helpful um, to ask those leading questions to the AI uh, with it already having a lot of background context so that it can make those stylistic choices or offer suggestions for these choices
Right.
that are specific to what I'm looking for and not just generic, what is everybody else doing? Like for me, I'm sure there's apps that exist that have this style. That's where it probably came up with it. But by saying specifically, I want this to be editorial community bulletin board style. That is a specific style or scope of style that will make the AI pull away from those SAS purples or blues and pick a palette that I normally don't see when I do my inspiration research.
Hmm. Have you experimented at all with the image generation over the past month? UI in image generation has gotten exceptionally good. Like it used to, make messed up letters and, the E was backwards and things like that. It looks kind of like Toys R Us. But I don't know if anybody's tried this yet, but in the new GPT's new OpenAI's new image generating tool, giving it that same thing and seeing what it comes up with. What's interesting is it's not taking it from a visual approach and not from a code approach. And you might find you get some different designs there.
Yeah, I have definitely done that, and I'm quickly trying to look through some old ChatGPT prompts that I've given because I know I have asked for an image of something, and that's usually if I was trying to let's say uh for our pricing plans like that screen where yeah you click on compare plans or see plans and it's going to show like those 3 or 4 boxes with the plan name and the price and everything um and yeah I've looked that up on the internet for some for some inspiration, but I have asked that to ChatGPT specifically or to Gemini and said, hey, just create an image uh of this element of this UI element, and here's some information that I can provide of the specific pieces of data that I want to show in the image. So I'll say, create a price comparison element, UI element using or including the name of the plan, the price of the plan, 3 different features of the plan, and then see more, something like that. And then yeah, I have gotten the an image back, and it's pretty good. Again, there's problems with it, but as a starting point for me to work backwards from or to build off of, it's pretty good, and it's gotten a lot better since last year.
It seems to me you still have to have a clue. Like,
Definitely.
so, like, I don't know how many people here would like bother to put the time into figuring out a palette. Like, maybe 1 or 2 colors or something like that, or try to make it the same color as the other page. Um, but a lot of us that just kind of take shortcuts because maybe we don't value that as much. But I'd be interested in to see how many people would, like, of our community would bother to say, hey, this is the palette that aren't designers, and expect without putting that effort in, expect to have something still come out pretty good.
And I think, for people like us in the call who already have apps or SaaS solutions, you don't want to, I'm not suggesting everybody start from scratch and try it this way. Because this is kind of just the umbrella concept. But for people who already have something in place, you could ask a question like, here is my current color palette. These are the colors that I'm using. Maybe show a screenshot and say, pull the colors from the screenshot and show me what my color palette looks like. And then from there, you could say, maybe you could ask, how can I make this palette feel more XYZ? Maintaining this primary color that I want to keep for sure, how can I improve my color usage in what I've currently have already built? And I think that for colors, that's pretty simple. Like you can change colors and change them back if you don't like them pretty easily. That's a lot less consequential than hey, hey, here's my onboarding workflow. I think I'm going to change the whole thing. It's hard to kind of go back from there. But colors or typography, I think that's why I use these as in my example. Those are fairly simple and non-consequential changes that you can make that I think can make a pretty significant difference. So you don't have to ask, what is my color palette? You can like as a consultant, here's what I have and help me develop it further or make some slight improvements based on these changes that I want to see, whether that's a feeling, I want to evoke this feeling, or I'm worried that my contrast is too low, or I think my colors are too vibrant. Can you suggest a softer uh, a palette for like muter palette or pastel or whatever? Definitely, you can ask consulting questions like that.
I pasted in the chat. I just took a screenshot from your app, and I just pasted it into a test page, and you can get an idea what it actually feels like, wired up to filters and stuff.
Hmm I think that's another difference between generating the image, saying, "Hey, I want to like create this image of this UI element," versus having the ability to use AI to build it. When you see the image, it's static, but when you build it with AI, it can fill in those gaps of the different states and styles that you'd want. So like hover states, empty states, those kinds of things. Those can be done um, kind of automatically with AI, and you don't get the same information and inspiration from a static image. So there's use cases for both, depending on, I guess, like how much detail you want. Like if I'm saying, hey, I just want to add a like like with the price page element that I used as an example, I don't need to see the states for that because I already have a design system with the primary button and the hover state for that button. I just want to see the layout
Speaking of
versus
design systems,
yeah.
last month Lynch presented um, basically a style design system guide, and if you grab that page, add it to your to your app, and then go to that page and say scan my other pages and update this design system based on my other pages. Now you probably don't want to say all my other pages because there might be not in alignment. So you pick the style page that you like the most in your app that looks the best, or the top three, and say use reference these three pages and update my style guide to match those pages. Um, the AI will go fetch the pages and update your guide. It'll refactor the guide and everything and make the panels and all the examples and the buttons and everything like that. And then in future builds, all you do is say reference my style guide page, and make sure that this page has the same theme, and that'll bring everything into alignment.
Hmm.
You can also use the AI and say go through my pages and tell me which pages are not don't follow the same style, and it'll go through all of the pages in your app and have a quick look at those as well. So cool.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. And that's my UX corner.
All right, thank you, Pearson. Um, so here's that page there, and if you it's funny building this page. It would have been ages, and it's table stakes now that it was two prompts. One prompt was I took a screenshot of your page and pasted it in. The second prompt was I said wire up the buttons, and it's already produced sample data. So that brings us to the next part is like, where's the bottleneck now these days? Where's the bottleneck? And I think the bottleneck is producing that data in FileMaker, which I'd like to sort of open up the floor. And maybe what we could do is use this time. We have a little bit of time left to talk about what coding tools. I was going to talk about auth and stuff like that, but I think maybe we'll stay on the same topic. So if you want to mention auth, or if you want to get into auth later on some other time, we'll do that in workshops. But I'd like to hear about what people are doing for either agentic coding, which means the coding is doing a little bit more, making some decisions, or whether it's just you're just using some linting or some minor coding in AI in your development. And maybe what I'll do is I'll ask a couple people because you guys are pretty quiet. Dave, what are you what are you doing for AI coding? And well, Dave,
Oh, you mean in your stuff?
no, and just in general, in anything, in anything. We get that the industry and the landscape is massively changing, and I'm gonna maybe a hint to where we're going to be going, and maybe a little later on. But
Yeah, I started down the OpenClaw thing, until they ran out of Mac Minis, right? And so then it was like, okay, what else can you do, right? Set up a VM, but then I didn't have enough freaking hard drive space, right, on my existing system. So So we're actually playing around with Claude Cowork right now.
Yep.
A bunch of other stuff. And then I've been playing around with this other app called Goose, which is pretty slick in terms of what it can actually do. Takes everything from start to finish.
Mhm.
And so that's sort of like one side off thing. I found another agent type app called Hummingbird.
Right.
So uh, the thing that, if you're a FileMaker guy, you guys will appreciate this. It's like how much time did you spend talking to somebody or doing like 15 minutes of code or 40 minutes of code or maybe 2 hours, and then you get to the end of the day and you go, okay, how much did I bill, right? Or how much did I actually do for that guy, right? And I was using another tracking thing that literally every time I changed the app, it asked which client you were doing stuff for, and then you had this report at the end, right? And it was built into the Mac system. So with Hummingbird, I just put in a predefined thing at the end of the day and say, just give me a summary of everything I did, who I talked to, give me the billable hours and stuff, and it gives you an entire summary with details. It says you worked on this app doing this, blah, 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 because it's actually watching what you're doing. You were on a call with Pearson for, half an hour talking to them about this project or whatever like that, right? Frickin' that probably saved me at least an hour a day just to get that billing thing. And then let alone tracking the exact time, right? Because I was probably underbilling, right, for most stuff. So now you're capturing like everything, it's taking it right down to like the exact time and stuff like that, right?
Email
So
routes and things like
yeah,
that.
using that from a tracking standpoint. So I don't use any of the other stuff now. I just come to this one thing and it gives me all sorts of shit, right? But from a coding, I have a couple of other apps as well that you just input in and it just goes to the different LLMs, right? I have some of them connected locally. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna say I got like 4 or 5 different systems that I use. And I don't know, it's just how I feel and who I want to, which window I want to bring up and stuff like that, right? If I'm in your system, then I just basically just use, what you have in there and stuff like that, right? But there are times I've gone outside of your system, right, to ask for like JavaScript stuff or whatever like that as
Mhm.
well.
Oh yeah, we don't, even myself, I mean, we don't exclusively use one AI source. And I'll show you some stuff that or I'll just tell you actually just some stuff that we're working on. We're just adding an MCP into Klai Studio, so that means you can take a third-party tool. We typically use Cursor, but you can use any editor for that. And let me just find something here that's an example. All right. So this is Cursor, and what I've done is this is just some open source a library that I'm using, well, that we created. And basically, what it does is I go over to FileMaker, and let me give you an example of how we do, or I do. Can't speak for everybody on the team, but how I do some agentic development. So this is a demo file. And I just want to make sure I don't have this demo file in here. I don't think I do now. Okay. So if I go into here and I'm going to go into the tables, and this is a little bit manual, but it's not such a pain because our style of development is we don't do anything in FileMaker. We just use it as a database and as a controller, right? So the scripting engine. So I'm just going to copy that onto my clipboard. I come over to this workspace. This has some underlaying commands inside Cursor, so the agent knows what to do with this. Um, on my clipboard, I have the tables for a new file called Demo Corp. Add that in under my FileMaker files. All right, so this is on my clipboard. Then you can do this. I think Silas has modified this to work with Mac as well, or sorry, Windows. But what it's going to do is it's going to import, and now I have demo corp here. Okay, and here's all my tables. Now, why do I want that? Is I want the AI to understand everything. So I'm just going to do the same thing for my scripts. I would do my custom functions as well, but let's grab all the scripts, put them on my clipboard.
Which tool are you using?
This is Cursor as the editor. Okay, and if you want to use this workspace of ours, you can grab it under our GitHub. It's open source. There. So now what we have is we have all the scripts and we have all the tables, right? So now I can go and prompt, and I can say, and I can make code changes. The code's not pushed back into here. If you're using Bruno's plugin, and he was, I don't think he's in today, no. He just released that, I believe, or he is releasing that to people, and it has an MCP server, and this can push the code back into FileMaker. I don't push that much code. I debug code mostly. And in any legacy system, that's what you're really doing. You're making changes to a few surgical precision changes to a few different areas. But I have something here. Let's say holiday. This is holiday. This is a little micro app that we use just to um, pick some days that Jason, myself, and Doug and Mark could meet for lunch or dinner or whatever it was. So I just whipped that up, and I want to make a change to this thing. I'm going to ask it how it works. Okay, holiday works. So in this file, how does the holiday hook save its data? And I can even say I don't see a holidays table, right? So this is something that I'm really surprised at, and I approached some of the people probably about a year and a half ago that have FileMaker tools, and I'm saying, how come you guys are not building anything in there? All right, this is just using Cursor Composer's model. That's their own model. It's almost free. Storage model, ID, owner, and data. So it's saying, hey, I'm putting this into a dedicated table called generic data storage because it's stored as one thing. So it's actually gone, looked at the script, understands how that would work, how it works, and it's explaining how it can do that. Now, if I want to make a change to that script, I can go back in as well. And you guys can do this. Like you can do this with anything. I literally vibe coded this environment and say, hey, this is some stuff about the FileMaker. This is some stuff about how the data comes in. When I paste it back, I'm pasting it back either as script steps or entire scripts, usually script steps so it doesn't break the linking. So I'm copying the whole stuff. So I'll show you that. I'll just show you one more. Let me make one change here. I see that this file has an event log. Let me just see if it has an event log. I'm not sure if it does. Events. No, it's events. No, it doesn't have an event log. Sorry, I'm just looking for something that I can show you an example of. Okay. Give me some suggestions on how I can improve the data quality or anything within this workflow. Let me just try that. And it's going to go off. It's going to, probably make a couple suggestions, and I'll have it implement that. This is only one of maybe dozens of mechanisms. Alessandro, sorry, I just noticed your hand was up there.
Yes, I use an agentic way that I join different components from different developer. And technically, what I did, because I continue to be a FileMaker developer, they need to build something inside FileMaker, not like you that you continue to use FileMaker only like a container. And I technically I'm able to not manually have the DDR copy and paste in the terminal, but I can have a script that export the DDR, explode it, So I have all the script, all the layout, everything, and they can chat without cut and paste. And also when I need to create a script, I make exactly what you did, but also I'm able to save the script inside FileMaker.
Right.
So I
So
don't
yeah,
cut and paste. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also to answer to person that few minutes ago was a piece of his argument. They say we don't have a component that understand everything that we did. I have posted in the main chat. I discovered this tool 8 months ago. The name is Pieces, and I start chatting with this guy, asking him if I make a developer, I need this. They make some modification, and technically, what I did, everything that I did on my computer is a long memory that save everything.
Yeah, that
So
sounds
save
really
everything that I did locally, so privacy. And so if I make a project 3 months ago and I have a new project now and I say, I like what I did 6 months ago. Can we reply this in this project? This is the DRR. And he suggests to me, he already made the script. Of course, it's not 100%, but it's 90% okay. I only need to review and I save me a lot of time.
So there's a fundamental difference between using one of those tools and using something like a cursor as an editor or a
No, I use
VLC.
Z. I'm using
Yeah,
Z.
yeah. Whatever the tool is. So, but I mean, a purpose-built FileMaker tool versus an external tool, and the difference is what it can reach. So this tool can talk to anything here, including everything on my local computer, right? It has a built-in browser, so it can actually surf. So if I say, hey, I need to integrate FileMaker to AWS's API. Well, I don't know how to do that. I got to set up IAM sources. I got to create a credential. I have to create I don't know, let's say a bucket, and I have to build all of that stuff, right? By having the ability to have a browser, I can say to this cursor, this thing can see the FileMaker scripts and it can see the AWS configuration. And now it has both sides in context, and that means it can solve the problem. And you're not going back and forth. And this is sometimes the problem that I'm running into. Um, we first looked at this maybe 3 to 6 months ago, and we said, "Hey, we need to have some better insight into FileMaker and into at the time better forms." So um, we can only control one side. We can't control the FileMaker side, right? And FileMaker's pretty closed as an ecosystem, even though we think it's open. It's not that open. And so, but now I still have access to all my code in there. So if I does create some code, it creates a little list of what I have to paste back. It's not too bad for me personally. Okay, for me personally, because of the nature of my code. And that brings up another point is that we all work differently. And it's reasonable to build your own tool to do whatever that workflow is, not to necessarily have an off-the-shelf tool. For me, this works very well for exactly what I want it to do. Um, I'm not creating layout. I don't need to reproduce like I saw one of the tools and it reproduced this. And I thought, why the hell are you reproducing that? I got it right here. Right? Why am I reproducing it in another thing? Is it because the developer decided, well, I can do that because I'm vibe coding this app and I'm just going to add all these cool things? Because that to me doesn't make an app better. It makes it full of cruft, right? I personally, again, I'm speaking for myself. I need something simple that does the job for that one workflow that I work in. And Dave mentioned, and you mentioned these other tools for tracking the time and those kinds of things. Since I don't really do any billable time for it, I don't generally track my time, so I don't have as much I should. I That'd be depressing actually. I don't use that, right? But I think that's almost everybody else would be totally different. I think it's a great idea. I think it'll be a lot easier for our team because our team has to jump around and it's such a pain. I feel bad for everybody because we use this application called Teamwork and they got to switch the timers. Okay, I'm going over here. You know, I don't think it's going to be all that accurate, right? And I think that would be great for them. Alessandro?
Yes, this is exactly how I help them to, if you're a team of people that work in different company or the same project, and when you have finished that, you send the long memory of everybody in one secure server, and you have all the history joined, and you can have a full resume without anybody send pieces of memory. You understand? So if
Mm-hmm.
you want to know what person did last week about this project, you have it. Because when you talk in your computer, because it's a company account, and person have shared this like this project, everybody that work on this project, you have all the history over
Yeah,
there.
I think that's great. I think that's great, and I think it takes time for everybody to set that stuff up, and it's
No,
one of
no,
those
it's
things
zero
that
time.
I know, but I mean, we're not all using that for some reason, right? And it's probably takes a little effort to go. I got to go find the app. I got to set an account. It's not hard. I'm not saying it's hard. I'm just saying there are so many. The rate of change is so fast right now that you have to pick and choose your battles of what you're going to try to stay up on top of. Right. Like I used to spend 25% of my time just learning about other technologies. It's probably now 50% right now because it's just, and I'm not staying up on things. You know, I'm mainly focused on AI and agentic workflows right now. That's the only thing I'm really, but it's just not practical for me to try all these tools, run all these tools. And that's what I'm getting at. Um, but I do think that people should give things a try and make some simple tools, which actually that ability to make your own tools and those kinds of things is kind of in the direction that we as a company are going to be are moving in. I'm not going to sort of talk about our newer product right now, but the things that we offer, I mentioned this, opened this up earlier on today, is the things that we offer as a developer. This the what we're bringing to the table is some kind of knowledge of something, whether it's knowledge of technology. That's how Better Forms was started. We gave access to a higher level of technology to somebody who didn't need to know that or didn't care to learn that. So we did the hard part. Whether you're a consultant and you're figuring out what a business's needs are, that's the hard part. Sure, the boss knows all the stuff, but it's in his head. You go through, you figure it all out, and you interview them, and then you build a piece of an application that solves, makes their life a little bit easier. That's what we're bringing to the table, right? All of that access to some kind of knowledge that we have. If we're only selling software now, everybody can write their own software, right? The fact that Dave, you said that you're using OpenClaw, for example, and I think is there anybody that doesn't know what OpenClaw is? Okay, um, the software that's creating is virtually anything, right? It's basically an LLM attached to a file system. It's an agentic loop attached to a file system and the web. That's effectively what it is. And you communicate with it through, say, Telegram or whatever mechanism you want, and it just writes anything. It just does anything, and there's of course an inherent danger there as well. Um, so if that's the case, why are people paying for any software? Like I always like to use certain apps as examples. Like Calendly is one of my favorite apps to use as an example. It's like, why am I still paying for Calendly? Today's balance, I don't have the time to take off of my day to code out a $10 Calendly a month or to set up a another system that can do that like OpenClaw. Say I could say it OpenClaw Google
My
Play.
nephew, he was paying for Calendly for his team, and so he basically rewrote it because
Yeah,
he has Google, and he made it a clone, and now it talks to his Google Calendar, so he doesn't have
yeah,
to use Calendly and saved his company, per user, the
per
subscription.
user. Yeah, and it's a great idea and it's something that we should do, right? But for me right now at $10, it's not worth it, right? But in 6 months or a year, it might be worth it. Or maybe we should do that as a team and now we have it for everybody and just do it. Okay, boom. We got a Calendly. Then we also have another piece of software to maintain as well. And I think there's something to be said there, right? How easy is it to maintain that application every time you need to make changes? Libraries change, things like that. If you have 100 of these things, if you have two or three, it's not so bad. If you have 100 of them, maybe you can throw some AI at it. I don't know, right? So I think what I'm getting at is there's a trade-off, right? Like, like for example, Stephen, what stuff have you built yourself versus what are you paying for still?
That's funny. I think of it as the locksmith's son. My dad was a locksmith, and our front door, we had a jiggle to open the door.
Bingo, right?
So
Plumber's pipes always leak, same idea,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Don't look at my databases.
Yeah, the cobbler's shoes, everything,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right, but that's what I mean. Like, but there are certain things that you probably 100% do. Like I used to build, in the past I would have built everything in FileMaker, right? Like that was our go-to hammer tool.
Hmm.
And now, as a body of knowledge, we use Notion. So this is our internal Notion hub here, and we use that for everything. And this seems so far, I think it works fairly well for us. If we're looking for, like, let's say for rebranding, right? We went through a rebranding here, branding positioning hub here. So this was a whole set of documentation. There's 20 or 30 documents and research and all stuff that hangs off of here. But what's nice is now I can go into my AI here and I can query this, and I'm saying, hey, I'm having a Friday live, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and because I have this really deep section of knowledge, they've done a really good job about with their vector integration into their search. So I'm really impressed with that, and that's a tool that we've probably started to at one time build some kind of body of knowledge in FileMaker, but yeah, and you could almost do it there, but it's getting crazy, right? So that's one of the ones that I can't see us building ourselves ever. So here's something I built just recently, and it's called it's an open source as well, and it won't really serve purpose for anybody else. It's just something I'm working on right now. Um, it's written in Go, and it is called FreeSync. And what it is a synchronization for a two-server environment. It's got a couple little glitches there that need to be worked out, but basically the idea is you run this on a Docker instance somewhere, and you give it credentials to two different servers. You have nothing to install on the servers. You have nothing to do with the putting in, like, you do have to have a modification timestamp field and a primary key, and that's it. And it synchronizes the two servers, and it's really performant. It creates up to 8 threads in parallel, and fetches all the data, and it does a successive approximation technique if they're out of sync to try to figure out where they are and bring them in alignment and things like that. Still work in progress, but that's a tool that it's not practical for me to go out and buy. And the one that I want that would go out and buy, I'd have to configure it and set it all up. And it's like, why do I want to go into every table and add all these scripts and everything? Just do everything through the data API, right? So that's an example of a built-in tool. The thing I mentioned earlier about coding, this is this one here. That's the one that we use. FileMaker MCP. This is a MCP that goes into between Klai and FileMaker, I think. But anyhow, yeah. Right. Here's another example. There's a vibe coded app. Is our Figma bridge, right? I mean, it took a while to do. It wasn't just an instant thing, but it's a tool that we would never have built otherwise without AI. It's just too much work, right? So, all right. Well, we should finish off with that. There's Pearson's app, and we'll. If you did produce a survey. Lynch just told me that we didn't actually ask for emails because it's anonymous. But if you want an extra vote and you legitimately sent one in, let me know and I'll add you to our. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you hopefully next month.